Hello, my name is Carly Neiman, and today I'll be talking about medieval Greenland. Within Greenland, there were two communities, the Norse and Thules. The Norse Inuits, which translate to the Norse people, were present from about 985 CE to the 1400 CE, and the Thules was present from about 1200 CE to present. They are located in the Arctic Circle, which is part of northern Canada, Alaska, Siberia, and Greenland, which is in North America. And I'll be explaining throughout this presentation how their culture, beliefs, and their geographic locations explain their lifestyle. So Greenland is an island that is bordered by oceans and seas, and the most notorious is the North Atlantic Ocean. Greenland in general has very harsh conditions, which leads most of the Inuit people to live on the west coast, as the southeast Greenland conditions are the worst on the island. The southeast side gets buried in snow due to the Icelandic low. This is where low atmospheric pressure is created, which causes a lot of snowfall. Further, it has hurricane speed winds due to the Picarac winds. This is where denser air on the Atlantic will cause the warmer air on the island to speed up as it goes from higher elevation to lower. And finally, the southeast side has a very harsh current. Even animals avoid this side of the island. It makes it very hard for any civilization to live there. And further, Greenland did not benefit from the warm period, so only the very tough civilizations can live here, which is, as we know, two communities, the Thules and the Norse. So as stated before, the Norse Inuits, they lived on the west coast, and they were the first settlers. Their population declined during the 1300s and 1400s, but when they first arrived, only about 14 of their ships of 25 arrived safely. They chose the west coast since the winds are warmer due to the Foehn effect. So there's a mountain range in Greenland, and when these warm winds flow down the downside of the mountain range, they become warmer, and this also creates less snowfall. The Norse Inuits hunted seals and caribous. They relied on driftwood for most of their products and labor, but most importantly, they built trade with Europe, especially ivory. However, in their population decline, one of the main reasons was ivory was eventually sourced and sold for less in other places, so this lost them a lot of income. And finally, they were able to develop their own language and identity. They had little influence from the outside world on their community. The other community was the Thule Inuits, and they arrived later by dock sleds, boats, and kayaks, and they lived north of the Norse Inuits. And the biggest thing with the Thule Inuits were they were more technologically advanced, which helped them remain longer in Greenland and are still actually present today. They made advancements such as bows to kill polar bears. They burned oil from seal fat for fires. But most importantly, they used various wools for clothing, especially caribou wool, which they figured out a way to make it waterproof, and this allowed them to be more active during the wintertime. This is really important because they were then able to use dogs to find seals' breathing holes in the icy oceans. And when they did this, they developed harpoons and they could kill the seals. This secured a constant food source for them, unlike the Norse people who during the wintertime often dealt with starvation. This is what helped the longevity of the Thule people. Further, there is little evidence of warfare and raiding. However, there has been artifacts of Norse people found at Thule's side. This either meant there was raiding or Norse traded with less perishable items since they needed meat, which is something the Thule people had abundance of. The most important thing to understand these two communities and the lifestyles they lived is their customs and traditions. The two communities believed that all humans, animals, and nature had a solar spirit, so they treated everyone equally and with the same respect. And they also saw polar bears at the top of their food chain. This meant when killing an animal, certain rituals and practices were carried out to ensure that the animal would be reborn. An example of this is they would put water into the mouth of a dead polar bear so that when it was reborn, it would not be thirsty. I believe that they had to have this respectful relationship with nature to be able to live so long in such harsh conditions. Further, they had many creatures or godlike figures they looked up to. Nanook was the great polar bear, and Nanook decided if a hunter was worthy or not based on their offerings. Colupelit was a creature with webbed hands, slimy green skin, long fingernails, and fins. It looked similar to the woman in the village, that it could lure children into the ocean and draw energy from them, allowing them to maintain eternal life. However, like most mythology, this is more of a lesson to teach children not to go near the ocean's harsh water. There was Sedna, the goddess of the sea, and its creatures, and the underworld and its spirits. There's variations of her stories, but all ended in her going out to sea, having her fingers chopped off, and then becoming sea creatures. And my personal favorite was Mahaha, a demon that would tickle its victims to death. They would be found dead with a grin. All of these mythological creatures give them a set of guidelines to follow and live by. It created a sense of order in a chaotic environment. Finally, all these points lead to the overall themes that I've learned throughout this lesson. Nothing is consistent, which can be seen with the harsh conditions in Greenland. And because of these harsh conditions, the people had to adapt and innovate. And again, something we've seen throughout this entire unit and the last unit is humans need a higher order to give guidance. Thank you.